Hello everyone and welcome to this tutorial about how to make a play-along video in 2020 using Luma Fusion that has changed a little bit over the years. And this is part 3 in the series. The first part looked at what hardware and software you needed. The second one looked at getting all the pieces ready to go for your video. And this third part is going to be about how to actually glue it all together. So what you're looking at right now is the main Luma Fusion screen. On the bottom right now you can see the projects that are there. Up here in the upper right is sort of like the viewer window, so you can see what is on your screen. And up on the left here are a bunch of different choices of things. You can add sources, photos, files, imported story blocks, titles, transitions, and you can add or edit sources as well. For this one, I'm going to go down here and I'm going to go to the second icon on the bottom and I'm going to choose the plus sign. I'm going to make a new project and it is going to be entitled I Believe in You, and then it's going to be ukulele play along, and then I'm going to hit the little plus sign and that's going to create the file. So now your screen is a little different here. You can expand it and see audio, but we don't really need to see that. We don't even need to see this little thing that tells us to lock a layer or whatever. What we have here is the sound levels, and you have audio down here in the green and video on the blue. And we're going to be using both of those in just a minute, but I'll show you what we've got. So first thing we need to do is we need to add our base video. And our base video is a motion video called Fading Diamonds. It looks like that. And it is 29.28 seconds long. That's our timeline right there. And that's going to be too short for the full video, but we want this behind everything we do. So this little icon right down here is the duplication. And what it'll do is it'll either duplicate something above, if there's another clip over here, or if there's a transition here, it'll go above. Or if there's nothing over here, we can hit the transition and just hit this little duplication thing until we get long enough in the song to cover the song. Probably 4 minutes is more than enough. By the way, if you go to these double icons here, a double click will take you to the beginning, double click will take you to the end, and then it just toggles you through each one as you go. So that's the very first part of what we had to do, and what I always start with is my title screen. I want to show you this. You can save your own titles, and as you can see here, I've got a bunch of different titles saved already. But if you keep scrolling down, you'll see the standard titles, and that's a great way to start. So if you don't know how to create a title or what you want it to look like, you can start down here with one of these and go to it next. But I have mine pretty well set because I've been doing this for a while. So I'm going to go to the right title. All I've got to do is find it. Play along white titles, what I end up using most of the time these days. And if I double click in that title, then I can edit it. And up here, the title is now going to be I Believe in You. As performed by Michael Bublé, and I believe he has an accent on his name there. And it's just going to be simply the key of G. You don't even have to do that if you need to, if you don't want to, but that's okay. Now if you notice, because I had a thing with a sharp in there, I need to delete that sharp that's just sticking out there, but now it's good. And then the other thing is, if you notice, I have the UkeStuff.info logo here, but I've changed it a little bit, and there's a ukulele that needs to be in there, so I need to adjust that. Now, just to show you, this is what you can do. Once you have your title set up, if you hit this little star plus the plus icon, you can save your title preset, and I can say play along title new and hit the plus sign, and that will now be saved. So if we go over to, I'm going to do the back arrow here, here's the new one that I just created to those specifications. So that's how you save a title. So that just ended up being pretty beneficial. And watch what happens when I push play now. 4 seconds. And then you're ready for the next thing. It just fades out. In fact, it doesn't even fade out, it just ends. And we'll add transitions in a second. Now, the second thing I do is I add a list of the chords that you need. And I actually have a new one of these too that I've been using recently, because the chords that I use, I'm going to drag it over here and put it next to it. We now offer chord charts for every song at ukestuff.com, so I make sure that that's there. And I have two options. I can go through my song, and right now I can put in what chords I want, or I can do this at the end. Now, just to let you see how this works, this middle font is just a font. It's that UkeFarm font, and right now it's the GCEA chords, and it's the first of the GCEA chords. Now you might ask, how do I know that? It's just been how many times I've done it. Unfortunately, the UkeFarm chords show the characters. This is the quarter for GCEA something, but you can't just keep it as a standard font to let you know what it is. So you just kind of have to know that these are all the GCEA chords. And by the way, here's the GCEA education chords that show the fingering. I don't use those because when I go back to make the not the guitar, but the baritone version, I go to use the DGBE chords. And these are actually the same dimensions as the GCEA chords, these first 6. So then I don't have to resize every moving box, which is hugely important to me. So if you've wondered why I don't use the chord font that has the numbers, I love that font. I helped John Baxter create that font. I asked for that font and gave him feedback in that font. But in order to switch back and forth, I have to do that. Also, John Baxter passed away before he made a baritone version of that font. As of today, by the way, when I'm filming this one, and it is February 16th, UkeFarm is back up and running for a little while, but there's a warning that it may shut down again. So whenever you can get those fonts and buy those fonts, do so before perhaps they don't ever come back again. Just say that as a message. So this one I'll come back and actually, but to give an example, if I was going to use G, C, D, maybe E minor, and by the way, you just have to memorize what those keystrokes are. The major chords are usually just letter names. The minor chords are usually the lowercase, but then the sevenths and so forth get kind of funky. So what you might use in the key of D would be a D7 chord. That's going to be an uppercase K, and it's going to also show you the D7 with the 2 fingers, which really isn't a D7, but we all just kind of work around that. So that is how you add the fonts. And again, for you setting it up, you were going to have to figure out what size works for you. I also, if you notice, I have a shadow color that I use. My friend Andy Ramos does that, and that kind of like opened my eyes to that. It just makes the lettering pop a little bit with that little bit of shadow there. And the shadow angle is 1, distance, or the shadow angle is 0, the distance is 1, the blur is 100, just so you know. And that's ready to go. The UkeTab things here is just an image that shows up that I can pick that I uploaded. And just the same way that you can save a one of these text, or one of these, I'm trying to remember the name for it now, a title. Just like you can save a title, you can save a photo. So once you've imported the photo, you can hit the little plus sign here and save that photo into your frequently used photos if that's something you're going to use again. Now, we're not done with that yet. I'd have to come back at the end and put the correct chords in there, maybe resize it, make it all work. But the next step is going to be to go to the actual song. Before I do that, let me show you how I do transition. Most of the time, I use something called a dip in a transition. It's a really complicated idea. It's not. But a dip takes your current video source and audio source and brings it all the way to 0 and then brings up the next one. I find in the play-alongs that that's really helpful especially when changing screens and then changing the following icon. I call it like the moving box. I've been using a box for a while. I'll talk about that in a few minutes. But I find that the dip also prepares people to know, when it's coming and when to move. Now, if you notice this dip, and by the way, I can pinch out and make the timeline longer or shorter depending on what I need to see. Generally, I like my timeline being here where, if you notice, if I go too far, I get 3.15, but if I go in a little bit, it disappears. This is the 1 second gap is enough for me to do my editing, and that's where I work most of the time. So if you notice, this is 0.16. A full frame is 1 second, and a dip has to be equal value on either side. So that's basically a little bit more than half of a second. You can change that in the question mark down here. If you go to preferences, I believe, there's your frame rate of 30, which is why it's that what I'm talking about. But the setting, what I wanted to show you was the transition here is set at 0.16. That works really well for me. Sets a title preset being at 4 seconds, which is fine for me, and a photo preset being 4 seconds. And I can also change the fit mode. Typically, I want it to fit, but there are times that I'm going to want it to fit other ways. And in that case, I will probably change this, and that's actually going to happen when I edit this video, because as I'm working on my iPad isn't widescreen like this. It's actually 4:3. So I'll have some black bands in this video that I'm not going to work around because I don't want to keep moving where the focus of the screen is, and I want you to see this whole screen at all times. Alright, so I've added that transition. Oh, let's take a look at what that looks like. Now, as a warning, as the new iPads get faster, Luma Fusion has had to make it so that sometimes when you're watching your video on an older iPad, and this is now 1 generation old, and within this next year, this iPad, I've got the iPad Pro 2nd generation. They're currently to the 3rd, and the 4th is going to be coming out. What the compromise that they've done at Luma Touch, which makes Luma Fusion, is they make it so that your transitions may not show when you're watching it quite right, but when you export it, it is right. So if you have an older iPad Pro that you're working on, or a slower iPad that you're working on and doing this, the transition may not show, but I think it will here because I don't have hardly anything running in the background. Let's see how it looks. Yep, it worked just fine. So you can see that little short transition is enough. Now, we're going to start with the text. And don't worry, I'm not going to show you how to do everything with the text here. Once you've got the concepts, you're good to go. But I go back to my titles, and I have a traditional white text that I use. And I'm looking here for one, and actually, this is, I'm going to be honest with you, this is a little problem that happened. I reloaded an old video, and that video overwrote my presets here. So what I'm going to do is go back and make a brand new preset. So this little icon on the left hand is going to bring me back to my choices. In my most recent video, all the way down, that is going to be released, is Yoda. So I'm going to go to the ukulele play along of Yoda. I don't want to use a baritone. I want to use just regular ukulele. There we go. Double click to open. This is like the perfect slide to use. So I'm going to I just opened the background. I'm going to open up this one. And I'm going to hit the little plus sign. And I'm going to say white lyrics and chords new. Hit the plus sign and save it. Go back to here. I'm going to scroll back up to I Believe in You. I Believe in You. Right there. There it is. It's open now. And now I'm going to bring in my white lyrics and chords new here. Now, when I laid this out, I had to decide what font I wanted to use. I use the Lato font, which is a free font, which is also the font that John Baxter used with these chords so that everything kind of looks the same. Not everybody's going to do that. Not everybody has to do that. And I like to put in the correct words and so forth. But for now, I'm going to leave that there. And then I'm going to go get my music. So if you remember, we imported the audio, and it's I Believe in You, although it might be under Michael Bublé. There it is. And this is the transposed version. And what I do is I give this about a second. So if you looked at that, was 4 seconds and 4 seconds. I give that about a second before I let the music start. So it gives people a chance. Now, my friend Andy Ramos, he actually puts a countdown timer of like 1, 2, ready, go, or something like that. I was trying to do that, and I couldn't get that to work for me quite right. And this ends up being just enough time to be ready to play when you hear it go, and it works pretty well. So I'm okay with doing it this way for now, although who knows, in another year or another couple months, I may change my mind. Now, let's take a listen. This is obviously the wrong words and wrong chords, but let's take a listen to hear what happens here. Okay, so if you heard that, it's all intro. So what I'm going to do is this. I'm going to go in here, and again, you don't have to do it this way. This is just how I do it. I use a bracket, and I let people know it's an intro. And the chords, I was cheating, I was looking at it before, are G and then C sus 2. All right, so one of the things that I have is I have a list of the font maps, and that's useful because what I'm going to need here is I'm going to need this chord. I'm going to need really the C sus 2 chord. So it goes... So in order to get that, what I'm going to use is I'm going to use the $ in font map E. These aren't available everywhere, so if you find that you need these, please feel free to email me. The email is on the blog website. Go to ukestuff.info, and you can find an email there to contact me, and I'd be happy to send you this document because it's not out there for everyone. But CSUS2 $ in this. Now, this is really getting advanced, but hey, that's okay. Advanced is okay because we've got to do it anyway. So check this out. This is where it gets so weird. I've got my G chord, and then what I have to do is this. The symbol is actually a large center dot, and there's no easy way to add that on the iPad other than to say it. So let's see if we can make it work. Large center dot. And if you notice, that did not do what I needed to do. Sometimes I have to try that twice. So I'll try that again. Going back to the same thing. Large center dot. And there it added it. So now I have a G chord and a blank chord, and I'll show you why in a second what I have to do. Then I need to copy that, and I need to paste that in there as well. So if you want to use another chord font or a set and lay it on top there, you can. It's just a little tricky to make that happen. Now, here's what I'm going to do. A long time ago, I figured out what size I wanted these to be. Incidentally, if you want to see the setup, the size is 165 using that particular font. And this one, the little next chord, is font size 130. The next is in the Lato, which is font size, oops, I didn't get that right one. The next is size 40. Each one of these has a little bit of a shadow on it, as you can see, which I'll have to take off in a second. But just like you can clone on that timeline, you can clone up here. So I'm going to clone that. It's going to add one down here. Now what I need to do is to add a $. So I'm going to say it's already on Shift $. And you can see that says B6. What I want to go to is font set E. So this is where this pays off. A, B, C, D, E. If I do this right, look, it says it is a B sus2, which is not what I want. So let me go back to the font set and see what I did wrong. Maybe I messed something up, or this is a mistake. So let me try, let me try the percent sign then. There it is. So I'll take that. Now, if you notice, that lines up perfectly, but you have an extra shadow there making it super dark. So what I do is I turn the opacity of that particular shadow off, and then it's just normal. And then I'm going to clone that one more time, and then I'm going to drag that over until it lines up just about right. I can be very picky and move it this way too, down here with the center X, center Y. But now I've got this going on, and then I also need to add the G, and that feels a little bit far away from me, so I'm going to move that over a little bit. And I'm going to move this one over. And this, because I've already got this side off the screen, I'm going to move it over with the center X like this. You can move it over, bump it over just a little bit at a time, or you can hold and it will move. And again, I'm not using my Apple Pencil right now, which is what I normally use for this, but I'm using that. And now let's see how this looks. And I'll pull up my ukulele to play along with it to make sure that it's sounding good. So here we go. All right. Okay, good. Now that's all there, but we have to extend this until the music stops, and I'll show you how that works. So here we go. Okay, so you can see this is where maybe even a fraction second off, but it doesn't matter. I find, now again, remember I'm in this spacing down here where it's a full second, 17 to 18, but I give about this much time. And it's hard to really say how far that is, but that's the space that I need for the next one to switch and dip, and also for the indicators to work. So I can clone that now, and then I'm ready to go for the next part. But before I do that, let's add the box. Now I think a yellow box is going to stand out really nicely here, and I know that it's going to start about here. So if you remember, I said this space was about what I need for transition. So now when it comes to titles, I've already made a title that's called a moving box title. And I call it a standard rounded chord indicator. And I'm just going to drop it in here right now. And I'll just show you what it is. It's a shape. It's actually this shape, the rounded rectangle shape, without being filled in, but with an edge color of whatever I choose. And the edge is 40, whatever 40 is, 40 pixels or whatever it might be. And I think yellow might work pretty well here. So I just drag that, and we're ready to go with that G. Now let's see where we should place it. Okay, so here it comes. I'll try that one more time. I need to stop it right when I hear the music start. Now this just needs to be moved in a touch like that. And that is the space that I need for a change. Let's do one more time to make sure that I'm right. The hardest one is the first one. Yeah, that'll work. And then I got to listen for when it needs to end. Right about there. So if I move it to about there, above where the next chord needs to be, then I clone it, open that up, move it over. Now there's two ways you can do this. You can move it this way too, and hope that you sort of created that right for each one, and you can click it about 50 times. You can also slide it this way and then do like finite movements left and right, and then that's the danger, is that you click in the wrong spot and it goes off the screen. So let's see if I can get this right and stay. Okay, that looks okay. Sometimes you'll have to adjust it to like fit better with like that longer C sus2. You can click and drag whatever you need to do to make it bigger to fit, and then maybe that worked the rest of it. So let's see. And if because of the chords being the same, it should be or the chord length being the same now, this should work. Now if you have a song where the chords change more frequently, each one of these has to be different timed. So alright, so I'm okay just doing that, and then I can go over here, and I can change the center of X to over here, and it might be too wide now, so it is. Again, it's because of that C sus2. If it wasn't that wide, it would work pretty well. And then we have one more to do. Let's see if we can end it in the right time. Maybe pushing a little bit close, so I'll move it a little bit further back. And we're talking fractions of a second here, and realistically, if it's off by a part of a second, no big deal. And because we already practiced where to end that, we can make both of those end in the same spot. But I still have to move this one. And again, I often find that it's easier for me just to click with my Apple Pencil and drag than to use the X, the X axis. So this is what it looks like so far when we do this. All right, here, let's do it. All right, now let's do the last touch. I normally don't do this until the very, very end of the song, but I'm going to transitions again. I'm going to go all the way up to our dip. I'm going to put a dip in here. These are just going to be normal dips. I'm not going to put in the last one yet. So I'm just dropping in the normal dips. Just make sure I got to grab it. With the Apple Pencil, that grabs a little bit easier. I'm using a mouse. So, and then one more dip. Now, if you notice, this one is it's not a two-way dip, it's a one-way dip. So I bring that, and this is where I have to expand sometimes just to see the numbers. It says 0.008, which is what I want, half of 16. But now I've got to pinch again the screen, and I'm pinching down here with two fingers to expand the screen or leave it there. But there we go, and let's see what this looks like now. There we go. Now, by the way, one other thing I can do before I go to the next verse is that now that I know what that second chord is going to be, I try very often to put the chords in order of what they're needed here. So I know that the second chord I'm going to need is this, large center dot. Isn't it nice when that works? And I know that I'm going to have to clone that. I'm going to have to go in here, and it was the percent. For some reason, my list of chords was wrong, but that's okay. I've got the right one, and then I have to go to font set E. 1, 2, 3, A, B, C, D, E. And there's my C sus2 that I was using. Now, I'm going to have to move this later to make sure that it's all right. And I also want to turn off the opacity on the shadow because I don't need that super dark. But then I'm ready to go for the next chords of the song. That's another really easy way to do it, is that when you have to add a new chord, go back to your first slide or second slide here and just add that. So now we're here and we've got the actual words. Now, how do I do that? And pretty much that's all you're going to need to know to finish off the song. But I'll show you. So, okay, so we've got G and C sus2, G sus2, and then verse 1. Now I do some editing along the way because, again, I don't need these verse 1 things when I send the text file to UkeTabs to be posted. So I don't need those there. And then the other thing that I do, just showing you everything in the process, is I put in chord charts like this. That was 4 measures. And those slashes represent beats, but when I'm creating this, I want to make sure that everything is right as I'm going along, so that then later on when I make the version off of this, and I'm not going to show you how to do that on this one. I'll leave that perhaps for another day or another topic of another video, but I do use this document to actually create what I call the chords. I usually call it a lyric-based play-along, because that's what it is, rather than having the chord charts. All right, and there is the intro, and then we start with the verse. I kind of delete until we get a new paragraph. Time goes by, and then here's where my own sense has to come in, is I personally feel like I have to change all these chord or all the apostrophes to the correct one. For some reason, when you import them, they become like the standard boring one, and the right one has that kind of curvature, and I kind of like that. So I know that's kind of crazy. So we've got time goes by, and I've been holding everything inside, but now, and generally somebody has worked this stuff out, but they do put things in the wrong spot from time to time that you have to delete and adjust. So we'll see how this actually works. I can fit about 8 chords into a page of a video before it gets to be too much. So this verse has too many chords, so about as far as I'm going to be able to go is 4. So that's okay. That's what I've already got. So I'm going to copy to here, and then I can either copy up here or copy down here. Either one works for me. I've now copied that text, and I'm going to go back to Luma Fusion. We're in our second deal here. And then I can double click on this text, and then I can paste. And the cool part again is by copying and pasting out of that other app, this font style stays the same. Otherwise, I have to clear out the font data. And you can see also when you're looking at this where the chord's been placed, which is often wrong. So we'll see how this works. And then I use the ellipse down there, except I need to be against it. So there we go. Theoretically, this should work. Let's see. Let's pay attention to where the chord changes are, by the way, too. Time, by, holding, inside. So let's go back and fix the chord chart too while we're at it. Time goes by, so C sus2. Oh, this is kind of weird when I flip back and forth. Before I can get that to work, I've got to close and come back. Time goes by, and I've been holding everything inside. And if I put it in the right spot, let's see if it's in the right spot. Okay, that one was in the right spot. So this matches what actually happens. And then, oh, I forgot. I've got to see if the but now and what happens with that. But now I. So the I is going to be their deal. So let's figure out where this ends. Here it comes. And that's going to be almost perfect for us. Now, here is one of my tricks with Luma Fusion. The last version of Luma Fusion offered all these extra video rows that you can do up here. I think it's up to 6. It's just crazy. So what I found out that I had to do is I had to create a blank title. A blank title. And I actually call it that, a blank placeholder. And I have to put that in. I actually have to put it in a couple of times. And what this does is it frees up the ability to clone these and have it show up at the end. And I'll show you what I mean by that. I have to make this much shorter now. So I have to squeeze the video together. And then I'm going to expand these out. And these do nothing. They're just blank, and at the very end of the video I'll actually delete these. They aren't needed. So now I got to go back to where I was at. Now watch how this is going to work. I want to get this first placeholder back. So instead of recreating it every time, as long as I know the chords are on the right spot, I can hit the little clone button and that's going to throw it there. And let's see how it works for timing. Remember, I like it at 1 second. Oh, but I just moved that. I don't want to do that. And I think I just got rid of my cut and paste I did. So I'll do that again. I want this whole screen to be at just 1 second right there. Let's see how it works. So we're going to make this one a little bit shorter. Go back. There's the C sus2. Clone it. So this one works. There's the next one. Check it out. Here we go. And I've been holding everything inside. That. And then finally, this one. And we already have a guess that it's going to end there, but let's find out. All right. And it's now ready for the next verse, which I can just, again, duplicate that one and then start figuring out what chords I need to put there too. This will now have 5 chords, I think, instead of the last one. But now you have the general gist. Now, again, I usually don't put the transitions in until the end, but I'm going to do that here, and I'll show you how that looks. Really quickly, there's the first one, second one, third one. When you add the transition, it takes it to the center of the screen, which is pretty nice. All right, and I'm not going to do any more than that because I'm not ready to go. So here's what the whole thing looks like. Now, the other thing I should have checked was what's the next chord. But now I've got nothing left to hide, so that'll be fine. So it was going to a G, and that's ready to go. And then I can start with the next one. You would do that for the entire video. Unfortunately, there's no group copy and paste yet with Luma Fusion. That hasn't been added yet. And when that does, once you get one verse figured out, you'll be able to copy and paste, and it would work out really well, especially for the chorus. But right now, it's a matter of doing this for every slide for the entire length of the song, which goes all the way out to 3 minutes and 26 seconds. Now, because I know this is the end, oh, by the way, you didn't see how I did that, but if I touch with 2 fingers on either side, it makes a cut. And then just like iMovie, you can drag, oh, sorry, I didn't drag the right one. There we go. You can drag something out and just throw it into the screen to get rid of it. The other thing that I do, and I'll just show you this real quick because I know this is where it's going to end because that's where the song ends. I can go to titles, and I have a end screen for ukulele play-alongs. And it took a while to just figure out how long this had to be. For me, this needs to be 16 seconds long exactly. It's a little trickier doing it with a mouse. There it is. And then I also have imported, and this is in a different spot, but a long time ago I recorded the little ending things for my ukulele play-alongs. And I have a little tag that I put of my own playing at the end. And then I always bring down the volume here like this, like the 10 or minus 11, either one is fine. Now when you get to the end of the video, you get this. Oh, there's one more thing I can do which makes it more realistic. I can go to transition and do the cross dissolve on video. So you can get that. And then you get the ending screen too. So here it comes. And that's the ending screen. And that's pretty much all you have to do to make the videos. Now, again, it's an issue of time. It goes faster when you're by yourself. You're not talking through the steps, trying to navigate with a mouse. And then the final step, of course, is this little box with the out arrow, where then you share your movie, and however you're going to share it. You can save it right to YouTube. I don't do that anymore. I save it I send it as another app and an AirDrop, and I send it to my MacBook where I upload it on my MacBook. It's just a little bit easier to do. This works, uploading through YouTube, but then I can be doing other things on my iPad while my MacBook is uploading. My MacBook is actually secondary to my iPad in my use of everything that I do, which is a little flip-flopped. I know most people, the iPad would be secondary, but for me, the iPad is primary, and then the MacBook is secondary. And that's how I make play-alongs using Luma Fusion on the iPad. And I hope that that is beneficial to you. At some point, I can make a video showing how I adjust this video then when it's done for baritone ukulele and then also for that other format. And perhaps that'll be video 4 in this series. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments. Be happy to get to them. And again, thanks for watching the video, and we'll have more content for you soon.